The hottest feuds and the biggest storylines traditionally pay off at WrestleMania. This doesn't always lead to fireworks and history being made. Pro wrestling is performance art after all, and sometimes human beings aren't quite able to match expectations, build-up, and excitement. Sometimes, a bit like your first time, it just doesn't live up to the hype. With that in mind, I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture, and these are 10 WrestleMania matches that failed to live up to the hype. Number 10. Edge vs. Randy Orton. It's a testament to both of these men that there was still anything even resembling hype for their match approaching WrestleMania 36. Edge's return at the Royal Rumble and the initial booking of this feud were both pitch perfect down to the smallest details, but then certain global situations developed. Anyway, from there the two were forced to continue the build in empty arenas, cutting promos to nobody but themselves with no idea how well they were resonating with the audience. Less experienced, less talented performers would have wilted in the circumstances. But as Sunday night rolled around, theirs was still the match everyone was most excited to see. Oh dear. What we got was, sadly, simply brutal for burial's sake. The slow pace and high danger of its makeup made watching it an overlong slog, the second longest WrestleMania match in history after the Iron Man match, that did nothing to excite most people watching at home, instead just inducing winces and gasps with no real satisfying payoff moments. The match definitely convinced you that both of these men genuinely hated each other, but that's kind of about all it did. Letting them go again at SummerSlam might yield a better result, but it'll now do it completely devoid of the hype it initially had. Number 9. Kevin Owens vs. Chris Jericho. It's difficult to lay too much blame at the feet of Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens here. What should have been a World Championship feud was downgraded to one over a secondary title and relegated to second on the card on the biggest show of the year. Despite the disappointment though, Owens vs. Jericho should have been a home run. The Canadians were two of the best wrestlers on the planet at the time, but what should have been an iconic grudge match ended up being a slightly disjointed and frustrating 16-minute slog. 3 stars, sure, but capable of so much more. Vince McMahon was reportedly angry at how much this match didn't live up to the hype, although it's difficult to put too much stock in the rambled opinions of an insane billionaire. Kevin Owens vs. Chris Jericho failed to live up to the hype of the Festival of Friendship and all that came before it, and it will remain a blot on the copybook of both men. Number 8. JBL vs. John Cena. Right, nobody is going to try and argue here that JBL vs. John Cena at WrestleMania 21 had the potential to be an all-time classic when it came to action in the ring. JBL was always more of a character than a performer, and John Cena is a modern example of how being over is far more important than being good. Just ask Adam Cleary. JBL vs. Cena was never going to be Savage vs. Steamboat or even Savage vs. Warrior, but it didn't need to be. This was the crowning of John Cena, the man who would be king, taking to the throne for the first ever time. He had been building for a long, long while, and one victory over the dastardly JBL was all that stood between Cena and immortality. Then, 11 minutes passed, Cena hit an AA, or an FU as it was known then, ooh, controversial, and won the title. JBL's near 10-month reign ended with a whimper. A new king was crowned in undeniably underwhelming fashion. Number 7. Batista vs. Umaga. Before we get into this, let's rewind to WrestleMania 23. Batista was defending the World Heavyweight Championship against The Undertaker in a match that overachieved, to say the least. The two big men put on a brutal classic, a bruising encounter that was far better than anyone truly expected. It may well have been the defining match of the Animal's first big run. Umaga, meanwhile, well, he was in the biggest match of his career, acting as Vince's chosen competitor against Bobby Lashley, representing Donald Trump. Wonder what he's up to nowadays. Both men found themselves on the periphery by the time WrestleMania 24 came round, thrown together in a battle for brand supremacy in a match that received next to no promotion from the company. It got little attention, but fans had high hopes for this match, expecting the WWE Hoss Battle to end all Hoss battles as two bulls met head-on the grandest stage of them all, both with something to prove. What came was one of the most forgettable matches in WrestleMania history. Number 6, CM Punk versus Rey Mysterio. WrestleMania 26 was one of the most disappointing WrestleManias of all time, with a whole host of matches that looked thrilling on paper but provided little in the way of genuine excitement. Punk vs. Mysterio had all the makings of a genuine modern classic. Let's not forget CM Punk weirdly singing Happy Birthday at Rey Mysterio's daughter. Ugh. What fans got instead was a glorified TV match, an underwhelming bout that went all of 6.5 minutes. 6.5 minutes for CM Punk versus my best friend Rey Mysterio? That is criminal. A generation of lapsed fans will look back at this and another light bulb will go off. Another reminder of where WWE's gone wrong over the years. Number 5, Triple H versus Randy Orton. It was a blood feud and then some. Hunter was an emotional mess after seeing Orton punt his father-in-law. Alright, I quite enjoyed that one. His brother-in-law. Yeah, enjoyed that too. And watched his wife get DDT'd. I'm saying nothing. JR spoke about how Triple H will turn his body into an assault weapon. Could he destroy Orton and retain his title? And within a couple of minutes, both men had hit their finishing moves. Was this going to be a thrilling 10-minute sprint to the title? Yeah, well, you don't need to be a long-time WWE viewer to know the answer to that question. This was a Triple H WrestleMania main event. This was going long, and go long it did, sapping every last drop of interest out of the feud as it went. The hype generated by the violent feud was never going to survive 24.5 bloody minutes of Randy Orton methodically working a body part and Triple H, well, doing Triple H things. Number 4, AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Ever since AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura arrived in the company, fans had been eagerly awaiting a showdown between the two, a chance to show the mainstream what New Japan fans already knew. Shinsuke Nakamura won the 2017 Royal Rumble, and the dream match was scheduled for the grandest stage of them all. And it was just fine. Nothing special, was it? It was just a solid 3-star match towards the end of the show. Styles won clean, but the match is remembered only for Nakamura's heel turn in the aftermath. Well, that, and for just kind of being really disappointing. It couldn't live up to the hype because the hype was built on the higher standards of the wider wrestling world. WWE's machine is designed to disappoint when it comes to action between the ropes. Not even AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura could avoid that one. Number 3, Brock Lesnar versus Dean Ambrose. Lesnar versus Ambrose went from a match that nobody had thought of to an obvious classic. Lesnar generally has his better matches with scrappy underdogs, and Ambrose was the sort of performer who, let's just say, will sacrifice his body for his art. This should have been incredible. The use of the word should there tells you how this went. Rumour has it that Brock had absolutely no interest in the match and therefore gave the bare minimum, not bothering to put together any interesting spots and simply being happy to chuck a couple of suplexes about and collect his pay. Jon Moxley's post-WWE run is yet another indictment Vince McMahon and his creative team, as the current AEW World Champion has quickly become one of the hottest stars in the world of professional wrestling. Allowing Lesnar to shrug his way through a WrestleMania match with Moxley was a big mistake, one that failed to deliver on the biggest stage. Number 2, Bret Hart versus Vince McMahon. It should have been the grudge match to end all grudge matches. The most evil man in professional wrestling was finally going to get his comeuppance as he came face to face with the man he most famously screwed. Bret Hart versus Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 26 was one of those matches that fans never expected to happen, but pro wrestling does never say never better than most. If you'd offered fans 11 minutes of Vince McMahon having the ever-loving tar beaten out of him, you'd have received few complaints. Watching the excellence of execution finally get revenge after nearly 13 years should have been extra sweet. But it went down about as well as when Jules farts in the lift. Don't get me wrong, squash matches are fun. but 11 minutes of chair shots to the back does not make for a particularly entertaining bout. The live crowd enjoyed it, but nowhere near as much as they should have, and time has not been kind to this match. Bret Hart destroying Vince McMahon should have been one of wrestling's great redemption moments, but it almost ended with sympathy for the devil. Imagine that. Number 1, Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar. So yeah, the fans kinda knew that both men were leaving WWE after the match, and that anger burst out from before the opening bell. Goldberg and Lesnar put on an absolute stinker at WrestleMania 20, a match remembered for how bad it was and little else. 14 years later, yes, they did put that right, but the bad taste of that first match still lingers. In 2004 speak, could a pro wrestling match be any more hyped than Goldberg versus bloody Brock Lesnar, the man who ran through WCW on his way to breaking records against the legit athlete who did the same in WWE. Goldberg versus Lesnar in 2004 was the very definition of a dream match, but all fans got was a couple of stunners and a big old middle finger. And that's our list. Did we miss any out? Let us know in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. Thanks for watching. I've been Adam from WhatCulture, and I'll see you soon.